So you moved to California before COVID?
Right before. So I got married in October 2019. That's when I moved here. The shutdown started for us in California, or where I was in California at the time. I think it was March 2020. So I'd been there 5 months. It was like, bam, closed. Yeah, crazy.
Mm. And is that something you look back on and think is, from where you're at now, do you look back and think that was quite fortuitous that you'd made the move at that time, given that COVID was an unforeseen phenomenon?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it was difficult, and this is something you and I have talked about, when you don't know your visa status. And for me, they very quickly came out saying, we're not going to issue any green cards, which meant I couldn't go home and I couldn't work. Um, and so I was just kind of this housewife, and it like totally turned any idea I had of what my identity was on my head completely. Because at 18 years old, I strolled out the door in Lincolnshire, said bye mum and dad, and was like just completely independent ever since. And then all of a sudden I was in this tiny flat as a housewife, reliant on my husband for transport, for money, for everything. um and I definitely had my moments where I was like, God, if I'd just come a bit earlier, maybe my paperwork had been processed earlier and I
Mm.
could have spent this time working. Or if I'd just gone later, I could have just stayed at home with my family, and me and Andre we would see each other a bit later on. I know you've been long distance a lot with your husband and in your relationship, and you just kind of get used to, like, 8 months becomes nothing, 9 months becomes nothing. You just phone each other. And so I knew we'd be fine. But I don't know. Yeah, was it fortuitous? Yeah, I think looking back, probably it was. Probably it was good for me. I think it was probably good for our relationship in the long run. Um, and I think just for me, I feel like having everything taken away from you like that, and then building it all back up again. It was hard, but I think in the long run, it's been quite beneficial.
Mm.
So to start off with, I think I had my driving license from England, but there was nobody really, and this is a lot of being an immigrant, nobody really knows, can you be insured on the car properly, can you not? And then we were told I had to get my California license, but then they were like, no, you can't do it without a social security number, which I was waiting. It was all just kind of everywhere. So I would sort of be wanting to desperately go out, he would be wanting to sleep, and I could not do a single thing without him. It's not like England. You don't just take the bus and off you go.
Mm.
So that was really, really tough. And I feel like mentally it took quite a lot of fortitude to get through that. Because I could totally see it from Andre, from my husband's point of view. Yeah, he was tired, and like his job's very physical, it's really hard. But then it was very difficult once the door was closed and he was at work, to not feel like, well, woe is me, poor me. And I mean, really, you have to learn to get some perspective, because then it's like, well, think about it. What, poor me, living in this beautiful apartment that a lot of Americans maybe can't afford because of this work your husband's doing. There's a global pandemic. You don't have any work stress. That you are okay. But I think sometimes it's still just these, like, very basic, like, human needs that we have to interact with people, to be part of a community that we were missing. I think it does impact you.
Mm.
And then I think just at one point I was like, right, I was so reliant on Andre, and it was really driving a wedge between us. Not just the actual reliance, but also mentally. I was like, you need to do this. I want you to be here. Like, let's. And it was so much for him. That in the end, I just sort of said to myself, right, you just forget about not forget your husband, but, like, sort of put him to one side where it comes to your happiness. Like, you need to make it for yourself.
Mm.
I mean, things changed a lot anyway, because we bought our little condo, which it was in a different town, and it's less. It's just a little bit more a bit closer to the countryside. It's a bit more
Mm.
suburban, so, like, I could get out and go hiking and just stuff like that. Um, but I really had to just, like, take control of myself and just be like, you can't you can't just be so reliant on your partner all of the time. And I didn't even realize that I was. I think before we got married, I would never have said to you that I was at all. And so I had to kind of reevaluate that and reevaluate what was important to me and kind of make my own way. And then I think so the initial, probably the first year was really tough. And then after that, when I just felt like, just let him do what he wants. Let him, don't get angry at him for being asleep. Don't like be annoyed that he's up at 3 o'clock in the morning watching TV. Just leave him. And do your own thing. And I did, and I started making friends when walking the dog, and I started getting out more and exercising more. And I think we were able to find a much happier medium then, when I was happier and I wasn't bringing the mood down, then he was as well. And he was having a hard time with his job. And I think for him to come home to a nice household that was relaxed and calm and there was no expectation and no judgment, we sort of muddled through it. But like you said, you come over, you assume a lot of things. We thought, yeah, I'll have my visa in 6 months, and it ended up being almost 3 years. And I think we talk a lot, like nowadays, I think a lot of people do, about being in a moment and how good it is for you. And it really forced me to do that. You can't just think like, oh, well, in 6 months' time, I'll be working and I'll be doing it. You live so much in the future that isn't guaranteed. And it really taught me to just like slow down and be like, okay, well, what are you doing today? What's going to make you happy today? Or what's going to make you feel good today? Like, should I go for a walk? Let's go and get a coffee. Or, you start to become a much more grateful person, a much more grounded person. And I think you just stop, like, I just do not live my life at great speeds anymore. Before, it's like the next thing, oh, I'm going to be a flight attendant now, and I'm going here, and then I'm going there, and I'm going to come home, and I went and did my teaching degree, and I'm going to do that. It was just like this all the time. And now I'm just like, oh, what should we have for lunch? Like, I don't.